The smell of roasted turkey and sage stuffing usually brings back warm memories for people. For me, it brings back the specific, tightening sensation in my chest, the feeling of being trapped in a room where the air is slowly being sucked out. It was Thanksgiving, the holiday that is supposed to be about gratitude and family, but inside my parents' house, the air was thick with something else entirely. It was a cocktail of judgment, unspoken hierarchies, and the constant, grinding pressure to perform. I was sitting at the far end of the mahogany dining table, a piece of furniture my father, Frank, had bought 20 years ago to prove a point to the neighbors. Next to me sat my husband, Mark, his hand resting gently on my knee under the tablecloth, a silent anchor in a stormy sea. On my other side was Leo, my 9-year-old son. Leo is a quiet boy. He has my eyes and his father's gentle spirit. He had spent the entire morning trying to be invisible, sensing, as children often do, that he was walking on eggshells in his grandfather's house. The dinner had been an endurance test. My younger sister, Jessica, sat across from us. Jessica, the golden child. Jessica, who at 34 still needed to find herself, and currently did so by posting heavily filtered photos of her lattes on Instagram while her 3 children ran wild through the house. Her kids were loud, boisterous, and completely unchecked. They had thrown rolls across the table. They had interrupted the adults constantly. And my father had just laughed, his belly shaking, calling them spirited. When Leo had quietly asked for the salt earlier, my mother, Barbara, had shushed him, saying, "Children should be seen and not heard, Leo. Look at your cousins. They are just having fun." The cognitive dissonance was enough to make me dizzy, but I stayed. I stayed because that's what I did. I was the fixer. I was the peacekeeper. I was the one who made sure the family didn't implode. Then came dessert. My mother brought out the pumpkin pies. She makes them from scratch, I'll give her that. The scent of cinnamon and nutmeg wafted through the dining room, cutting through the tension. Leo's eyes lit up. It was his favorite. He sat up straighter, folding his hands in his lap, the picture of politeness. My father stood up to carve the pies. He served Jessica first, giving her a massive slice topped with a mountain of whipped cream. Then he served Jessica's 3 kids. He gave a slice to Mark. He gave a slice to my mother. He took a slice for himself. Then he sat down. There was one plate empty. Leo's plate. The silence that fell over the table was heavy, immediate, and suffocating. Leo looked at his empty plate, then at his grandfather, then at the remaining pie on the serving dish. There was plenty left. "Grandpa," Leo whispered, his voice trembling slightly, "may I have a slice, please?" Frank didn't even look up from his fork. He shoveled a bite of crust into his mouth, chewed deliberately, and swallowed. Then he looked directly at my son with a smirk that didn't reach his cold, gray eyes. "No," Frank said. The word hung in the air like a slap. "Frank," Mark started, his voice low and dangerous. "No pie for your son," my father said, pointing his fork at Leo. "Bad attitude today. He didn't say hello loud enough when he walked in the door. If he can't show respect to the man who owns the roof over his head, he doesn't get the rewards of this table." I felt the blood drain from my face. Leo hadn't been rude. Leo had been shy. He had hugged his grandmother. He had said hello. He was just quiet. Unlike Jessica's kids, who had literally kicked the dog when they walked in and were currently smearing whipped cream on the expensive table runners. "He's 9, Dad," I said, my voice shaking, not with fear, but with a sudden, blinding rage that I had been suppressing for 30 decades. "He said hello. He's been polite all day." "He mumbled," Frank snapped. "In the real world, mumbles don't get you paid. He needs to learn. Tough love. Look at Jessica's kids. They possess confidence. Your boy is weak. No pie." He turned back to his meal, dismissing us, dismissing my son's tears that were now spilling over his lashes. I looked at my mother. Barbara was standing by the sideboard. She saw Leo crying. She saw the humiliation burning his cheeks. "Mom," I asked. It was a plea, a final test. Barbara looked at me, then looked at Frank. She nervously smoothed her apron. "Well, Andrea," she said, her voice thin and airy, "your father has a point. Leo does need to speak up more. Maybe next time." That was it. That was the moment. The tether that had bound me to this house, to these people, to this unending cycle of trying to buy their affection, didn't just fray. It snapped. It was a physical sensation, a sharp crack inside my ribcage. Thank you so much for being here and listening to my story. It's hard to relive these moments, but I know I'm not alone. If you've ever had to bite your tongue at a family dinner just to keep the peace, please comment below and tell me which city you were watching from. I'd love to know I have friends out there. I didn't scream. I didn't flip the table. In the movies, the protagonist always makes a scene. They throw the wine in the villain's face. But in reality, when you are truly done, when you have reached the absolute limit of your tolerance, you don't get loud. You get quiet. You get deadly calm. I stood up. The chair scraped against the hardwood floor, the floor I had paid to have refinished 2 years ago, making a harsh sound that made Jessica look up from her phone. "Come on, Leo," I said. My voice was steady. It didn't sound like my voice. It sounded like a stranger's. I reached down and took my son's hand. Mark was already standing, his face a mask of controlled fury. He knew. He knew that if he spoke, he might do something that would land him in jail, so he channeled all his energy into protecting us. "You're leaving?" Jessica scoffed, a piece of pie crust hanging from her lip. "God, Andrea, you're so dramatic. It's just pie. Don't be such a snowflake." "Sit down, Andrea," my father barked. He didn't look at me. He just assumed I would obey. I always had. "We haven't had coffee yet, and I need to talk to you about the gutters." The gutters. Of course, the gutters I would be expected to pay for. I walked around the table. I didn't look at my father. I didn't look at my sister. I looked at my mother one last time. She was avoiding my gaze, pretending to be very interested in a spot on the tablecloth. She had chosen. She chose the bully because it was easier than defending her child. She had always chosen him. "Goodbye, Barbara," I said. Not Mom, Barbara. We walked out of the dining room, down the hallway lined with photos of Jessica. Jessica at prom, Jessica at graduation, Jessica's wedding. There was one photo of me, a small 4x6 tucked in a corner, from when I got my CPA license. It was dusty. We stepped out into the crisp November air. The door clicked shut behind us, and the sound was the most satisfying thing I had heard in years. It sounded like a prison gate opening. Mark buckled Leo into the back seat of our car. Leo was silent, wiping his eyes with the sleeve of his dress shirt. I got into the passenger seat. My hands were trembling now, the adrenaline dumping into my system. Mark started the car and pulled away from the curb, leaving the house with the perfectly manicured lawn, paid for by me, behind us. We drove in silence for about 10 minutes. The streetlights flickered past, rhythmic and hypnotic. Then a small voice from the back seat broke the quiet. "Mom?" I turned around, reaching my hand back to him. "Yes, honey?" Am I bad?" Leo asked. His voice was so small, so filled with genuine confusion and hurt. "Grandpa said I have a bad attitude. I didn't mean to be bad." My heart shattered into a million jagged pieces. This was the legacy they were passing down. They were trying to infect my son with the same disease they had given me. The belief that we were inherently unworthy, that we had to earn the right to exist, that love was conditional on performance. No, Leo, I said, squeezing his hand fiercely. You are not bad. You are wonderful. You are kind and you are polite and you are good. Grandpa was wrong. He was being a bully, and we do not tolerate bullies, even if they are family. Mark reached over and took my other hand. He's never talking to him like that again, Andrea. I don't care who he is. I know, I whispered, staring out the windshield. He's never going to get the chance. I wasn't just sad anymore. The sadness was hardening into something useful, something cold. I was a chief financial officer. I managed budgets in the millions. I dealt with hostile takeovers and contract negotiations. I knew how to handle liabilities. And my father, he had just become a liability. We got home around 8:30 p.m. We ordered pizza, a large pepperoni with extra cheese, Leo's favorite, and we sat on the living room floor, eating right out of the box. We laughed. We watched a silly movie. We decontaminated ourselves from the toxicity of the afternoon. By 9:30, Leo was asleep, safe in his bed, the trauma of the no pie incident hopefully soothed by the safety of his own home. But the night wasn't over. I was in the kitchen, making tea, when my phone buzzed on the counter. I stared at it. I knew who it was. The pattern was as predictable as the tides. Abuse, silence, demand. That was the cycle. I picked it up. 11:30 p.m. Dad, stop pouting. It's childish. Mortgage is due tomorrow. $3,800. Don't be late this time. The bank charged a late fee last month, and I expect you to cover that too. Send it before you go to sleep so I can verify it in the morning. I stared at the screen. The blue light illuminated the dark kitchen. There it was, the transaction. For 10 years, I had been the bank. I had paid off their credit cards. I had paid for the new roof. I sent $3,800 every single month for the mortgage on the house I grew up in, the house I had just been effectively kicked out of. Why did I do it? Because of the narrative. We sacrificed everything for you to go to college, Andrea. Family helps family. You're the successful one. It's your duty. I had bought into it. I thought if I paid enough, if I was successful enough, if I fixed enough problems, eventually Frank would look at me with pride. Eventually Barbara would protect me. Eventually I would be worthy of the pie. But looking at that text message, juxtaposed against the memory of my son's tear-streaked face, the fog cleared. He didn't want a daughter. He wanted a retirement plan. He wanted an ATM that he could kick when it didn't dispense cash fast enough. He chided my son for a bad attitude while simultaneously demanding $4,000 from me with zero please or thank you. I felt a strange sensation wash over me. It wasn't anger. Anger is hot. It burns out. This was clarity. It was cool, sharp, and clinical. It was the feeling I got when I looked at a balance sheet and found the discrepancy. I opened my laptop. I logged into my bank account. I went to the Recurring Transfers tab. There it was. Dad's house, $3,800, monthly, autopay. My finger hovered over the trackpad. I thought about the time Dad told me I wasn't pretty enough to be a receptionist, so I better be smart. I thought about the time Mom told me Jessica needed the new car more because her spirit is so fragile, while I drove a rusted beater to my first accounting job. I thought about Leo asking if he was bad. I clicked cancel. Then I clicked delete payee. I didn't stop there. I went to the cell phone plan family bundle. I removed Frank, Barbara, and Jessica. I went to the streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, HBO. Change password, change password, change password. Log out of all devices. It took me about 20 minutes to untangle 10 years of financial enmeshment. Then I picked up my phone. I didn't write a paragraph. I didn't explain my feelings. I didn't ask for an apology. You don't negotiate with terrorists, and you don't explain logic to narcissists. I typed, "Ask your daughter with the good attitude to pay it. The ATM is out of order. Indefinitely." I hit send. Then, I did something I should have done years ago. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, placed it face down on the counter, and went upstairs to sleep next to the husband who actually loved me. I couldn't sleep immediately, of course. My mind was a whirlwind of memories, a highlight reel of my own stupidity. Lying there in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan, the history of my role as the provider played out. It started when I was 22. I had just landed my first junior analyst job. I was making decent money for a kid out of college. My parents sat me down at that same mahogany table. "Andrea," my dad had said, looking solemn, "the business is struggling. We might lose the house. We just need a little help to bridge the gap." I gave them my entire signing bonus, $5,000. I felt proud. I felt like a savior. But the gap never closed. 3 years later, Jessica got pregnant with her first child. She wasn't married, and the father was a bartender who wasn't ready for labels. My parents decided Jessica couldn't possibly work while pregnant. She needed to nest. "You're making 6 figures now, Andrea," my mother had wheedles pouring me tea. "You don't have children. You have disposable income. Surely you can cover Jessica's car payment. It's for the safety of the baby." I was driving a 6-year-old Toyota Camry with a window that wouldn't roll down. Jessica wanted a leased BMW X3 because SUVs are safer. I paid for it. I paid for it because every time I hesitated, my mother would sigh and say, "I guess money changes people. We used to be so close." The guilt was a weapon they wielded with surgical precision. I remembered the investment. 5 years ago, Frank told me he wanted to refinance the house to get a lower rate, but his credit score was temporarily dinged because of a mistake the bank made. He asked me to co-sign. "It's just a formality, Andy," he had said. He actually called me Andy, the nickname I loved. "I pay the mortgage, you just put your name on the paper so the bank is happy. And listen, since you're helping us, when we pass, the house goes to you. It's your inheritance." I did it. I co-signed. And then, 6 months later, he lost the paperwork for the payments and asked me to just handle it directly, and he would pay me back. He never paid me back, not a dime. I became the invisible landlord of my own childhood trauma. I rolled over in bed, looking at Mark's sleeping profile. He had warned me. Years ago, he had said, "Honey, they are bleeding you dry. They don't respect you. They consume you." I had fought him on it. I had defended them. "They're my parents, Mark. They're just bad with money." I was so wrong. They weren't bad with money. They were excellent with my money. They used it to build a lifestyle they hadn't earned, to prop up Jessica's endless failures, and to maintain the illusion of being upper-middle-class patriarchs. And the worst part, the money hadn't bought love. It hadn't even bought basic decency. I had spent $500,000 over a decade to be told my son couldn't have a slice of pumpkin pie. The realization was bitter, like swallowing a pill that had dissolved in my throat. But it was also liberating. If the relationship was transactional and I was the only one paying, then the transaction was void. I thought about the mortgage. My name was on the loan. But wait, if my name was on the loan, that meant I had access to the mortgage account. I hadn't looked at the actual bank portal in years. I just transferred the cash to Dad's account and he paid the bank, or so I thought. A cold chill went down my spine. I sat up. "What is it?" Mark mumbled sleepily. "I need to check something," I whispered. "Go back to sleep." I crept out of bed and went back downstairs to my laptop. I needed to see the numbers. I needed to see the receipts. The next morning, the fallout began. I woke up to 47 missed calls, 30 from my mother, 12 from my father, 5 from Jessica. There were voicemails. I didn't listen to them yet. I made coffee. I made pancakes for Leo, blueberry, with extra syrup. I sat with him and Mark, and we ate breakfast like a normal family. "Mom," Leo said, his mouth full, "are we going to see Grandma for Christmas?" I looked at Mark. "No, sweetie. We're going to have our own Christmas this year. Maybe we'll go skiing." "Cool," Leo shouted. He had already moved on. Kids are resilient if you remove the poison from their environment. Once Mark took Leo to school, I sat down at the kitchen island and prepared for war. I unlocked my phone. The texts were escalating in hysteria. "Mom, 6 a.m. Andrea, your father is very upset. He says you canceled the transfer. Please fix this immediately. He has high blood pressure." "Mom, 6:30 a.m. Are you trying to kill him after everything we did for you?" "Jessica, 7:15 a.m. WTF? Netflix isn't working. And did you seriously cut Dad off? You are so selfish. You have plenty of money. You're just jealous because Dad likes my kids better." "Dad, 8 a.m. You ungrateful bitch. You think you can power play me? I made you. I can break you. Turn the money back on or don't bother coming to the funeral." The funeral threat. A classic. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I took screenshots. Every text, every threat. I saved them to a folder on my cloud drive named Evidence. Then I opened the mortgage servicer's website. I had to reset the password because I hadn't logged in directly in so long. I entered my social security number, my date of birth. The dashboard loaded. I stared at the screen. I blinked, thinking maybe the coffee hadn't kicked in. The balance was wrong. I had been sending $3,800 a month for 10 years. That's $456,000. Even with interest, the principal on the loan should have been significantly paid down. But the balance on the mortgage was nearly exactly what the house was worth. It was maxed out. I clicked on transaction history. My stomach dropped. 2 years ago, there was a cash-out refinance. Someone had taken out $150,000 in equity from the house. I looked at the date. It was 2 weeks before Jessica posted photos of her brand new renovation on her kitchen and her 2-week vacation to Aruba. My blood ran cold. They hadn't just been using my monthly payments to live. They had forged my signature or used a power of attorney I didn't remember signing to drain the equity out of the house. I was paying the mortgage on a shell. I picked up the phone. I didn't call my parents. I called the one person I knew would have the dirt. "Hello?" a male voice answered. He sounded tired. "Tom," I said. "It's Andrea, Jessica's sister." There was a pause. "Hey, Andrea." "Look, if this is about Jessica's alimony, I'm tapped out." "It's not," I said. "I left the family, Tom. I walked out yesterday. I cut them off." "Whoa," Tom said. The tone changed instantly. "Welcome to the club. What took you so long?" "I need to know something," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "Did Jessica get $150,000 about 2 years ago?" Tom laughed, a dry, bitter laugh. "Oh yeah, the inheritance advance. That's what she called it. She said Frank and Barbara gave her an early inheritance so she could start fresh after I left her. She blew it in 6 months, Andrea. New kitchen, trip to Aruba, that stupid purebred dog. An inheritance advance from the house?" "Yeah," Tom said. "And Andrea, you should know, she showed me the will once when we were still married to prove she was going to be rich." I gripped the phone. "And?" "You aren't in it," Tom said softly. "The house, whatever is left of it, it all goes to Jessica. You were listed as the executor, not the beneficiary. They wanted you to handle the paperwork for your sister getting everything." I closed my eyes. Tears leaked out, but they weren't sad tears. They were tears of pure, unadulterated fury. They stole the equity. They made me pay the loan, and they planned to leave the asset to the sister who mocked me. "Thank you, Tom," I said. "That's all I needed." "Go get 'em, Tiger," Tom said. I hung up. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was a creditor, and I was going to collect. I spent the next 3 days in a fugue state of forensic accounting. I took a personal leave from work. My boss, a woman named Karen, who was as sharp as a tack, took one look at my face on Zoom and said, "Take the week, burn it down." I pulled my credit reports. I pulled the property records from the county clerk's website. The depth of the betrayal was staggering. Not only had they done a cash-out refinance, but they had also opened a home equity line of credit, HELOC, in my name. I recalled signing a stack of papers 5 years ago when Dad said he needed to adjust the insurance. I hadn't read them. I trusted him. Rule number 1 of finance: never sign what you haven't read. I had broken my own rule for family. The HELOC was maxed out at $50,000. The statement showed charges at luxury boutiques, travel agencies, and a divorce lawyer for Jessica. I had literally paid for Jessica's divorce lawyer to fight Tom, the only decent guy she ever dated. I printed everything. The pile of paper on my desk grew thicker. My receipts were undeniable. On day 4, the silence from my family broke, but not with an apology. My doorbell rang. I looked at the security camera. It was my mother. She looked disheveled. She was crying. I opened the door, but I left the storm door, the glass barrier, locked. "Andrea," she wailed, pressing her hands against the glass. "Please, you have to talk to us. Your father, he's in bad shape." "Did he have a heart attack?" I asked, my voice flat. "He's having chest pains," she sobbed. "The stress. He can't believe you would do this. The bank called. They said the payment is late. They're charging a fee." "Then pay it," I said. "We don't have it," she screamed. "You know we live on a fixed income." "You don't live on a fixed income, Mom," I said, holding up a piece of paper against the glass. It was the bank statement showing the withdrawal for the Aruba trip. "You live on my income, and you spent the equity on Jessica." Her face went pale. The tears stopped instantly. It was miraculous. You dug into our private finances?" she hissed. "That is illegal. That is a violation of privacy." "My name is on the loan," I shouted, finally raising my voice. "It is my finance. You stole from me. You committed fraud." "We raised you," she yelled back. "We fed you." "We clothed you. You owe us." "I don't owe you a retirement funded by fraud," I said. "And I certainly don't owe you a house to leave to Jessica." She stepped back, looking shocked. "Who told you that?" "Does it matter?" I asked. "Go home, Barbara. Sell the BMW, sell the jewelry, figure it out, because the Bank of Andrea is closed, permanently." I shut the heavy wooden door and locked the deadbolt. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood, shaking. It hurt. God, it hurt. It's a specific kind of pain to realize your mother is an accomplice to your robbery. But I had a plan. I called Lawyer Davis. He was a shark in a cheap suit, the kind of guy who knew every loophole in the state property code. "Here's the situation," I told him, sitting in his office the next day. "My name is on the mortgage, but the deed is in their name with rights of survivorship to my sister. They are defaulting on the loan that I am legally responsible for." Davis looked at the paperwork. "If you stop paying, the bank forecloses. Your credit takes a hit." "My credit score is 820, I said. "I can take a hit. I don't care about the score. I care about the asset." "Okay," Davis said, leaning back. "So let it burn. Let the bank foreclose." "No," I said. "I don't want the bank to take it. I want to take it." Davis raised an eyebrow. "The bank doesn't want the house," I explained. "They have too much inventory. If the loan goes into default, they will auction it off or sell the note." "You want to buy the note?" "I want to buy the house at foreclosure," I said. But I can't do it as Andrea Miller. They'll know, and they'll guilt me. So we form an LLC, Davis said, smiling. He tapped his pen on the desk. A blind trust. We buy the property at auction. You evict them as a faceless corporate entity. Exactly, I said. Cold, Davis said. I like it. They wanted a business transaction, I said, thinking of the pie. I'm giving them one. Before I could execute the nuclear option, I needed to secure one flank. Jessica. I knew Jessica. If she went down, she would try to take everyone with her. She would use the grandkids as shields. I met Tom for coffee. He looked better since the divorce. He had lost weight. He looked rested. She's going to spiral, Tom said, blowing on his coffee. If the money stops, she can't pay her rent. She'll move back in with Frank and Barbara. That's the plan, I said. Let them all be under one roof. It makes the target smaller. You're scary when you're mad, Tom grinned. I need proof, Tom. I need the text messages where she admits to the inheritance scheme, just in case they try to sue me for elder abuse or something. Tom pulled out his phone. Way ahead of you. I exported our entire chat history from the last 3 years. It's on this thumb drive. He slid a small USB drive across the table. Why are you helping me? I asked. You're out. You're free. Because of Leo, Tom said. His expression softened. And because of my kids. I don't want them growing up thinking that using people is love. I want sole custody, Andrea. If Jessica is homeless and unstable, that helps my case. It does, I nodded. Also, Tom hesitated, I was there at that Thanksgiving 4 years ago, the one where Frank made you pay for the catered food because you earned more. I saw your face. I wanted to say something then, but I was a coward. This is me making up for it. Thank you, I said. Tom touched my hand. Just be prepared. When a narcissist loses control, they don't just get mad. They try to destroy you. Let them try, I said. I have the receipts. Twist 2 was coming. I could feel it. The silence from the house was too loud. 2 weeks went by. I didn't pay the mortgage. The late notices started arriving at my parents' house, since that was the property address. Then came the call. It wasn't Mom. It was a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Miller? A voice said. This is Mercy General Hospital. My heart stopped. Despite everything, the biological programming is strong. Yes? Your father, Frank, has been admitted. He was brought in by ambulance. Chest pains. Is he... I couldn't finish the sentence. He's stable, the nurse said, but the family is requesting you come. They say it's urgent. I hung up. I called Mark. Don't go alone, Mark said. I'm coming. No, I said. Stay with Leo. I need to do this. I need to see it with my own eyes. I drove to the hospital. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard, my knuckles were white. Was this it? Did I kill him? Did the stress of me cutting off the money actually give him a heart attack? Guilt, that old familiar friend, sat heavily on my chest. Maybe I went too far. Maybe I should have just paid the damn mortgage. It's just money, right? I walked into the ER. I found his room. The curtain was half open. I saw my mother sitting by the bed, holding his hand. Jessica was there, looking bored, scrolling on her phone. Frank was hooked up to a monitor. It was beeping rhythmically. I stepped in. You came, Mom said. She sounded triumphant, not relieved. Frank opened his eyes. He looked weak. Andrea, he wheezed. You almost killed me. Dad, I said, stepping closer. What happened? Stress, he gasped. The doctor said my heart couldn't take the betrayal. The house, we're going to lose the house. And whose fault is that? I asked quietly. Yours, Jessica snapped. You cut him off. You act like you're so high and mighty, and you put your own father in the hospital. If you sign the check, Frank whispered, grabbing my wrist with surprising strength, If you pay the arrears, maybe I can recover. I need peace of mind, Andrea. Do your duty. I looked at him. I looked at the monitor. Then a nurse walked in, not the one who called me, a younger one, looking annoyed. Mr. Peterson, she said to Frank, I told you need to stop moving around. You're pulling the leads off. She looked at me. Are you the daughter? Yes, I said. Can you tell him to stop buzzing the station for soda? She sighed. The doctor already told him it's just severe heartburn. GERD. He ate too much spicy food. His EKG is normal. We're discharging him as soon as the reflux meds kick in. The room went dead silent. The beep of the monitor seemed to get louder. Heartburn? I asked. Frank let go of my wrist. He glared at the nurse. I am in pain. It's gas, sir, the nurse said, checking his chart. You have gas. I looked at my father, the dying man. You called me here, I said, my voice trembling with rage, and told me you were dying for gas? It felt like a heart attack, Barbara shouted. It's the same symptoms. You wanted the check, I said. You thought if I saw him in a hospital bed, I would open the checkbook. I laughed. It was a harsh, jagged sound. You people are incredible, I said. Truly. I turned around. Where are you going? Frank bellowed, his weak voice suddenly booming. Get back here. I am your father. Get some Tums, Frank, I said over my shoulder, and start packing. The hospital stunt was the final nail in the coffin. Whatever lingering guilt I had was gone, replaced by a cold, hard determination to see this through to the end. I met with Lawyer Davis again. They're defaulting, I told him. They haven't made a payment in 2 months. The notice of default just hit. Okay, Davis said. Here is the timeline. The bank will issue a notice of trustee sale in about 90 days. That's when the auction happens. I want that house, I said. We have set up Justice Properties, LLC, Davis said. Registered in Delaware for anonymity. I will be the face of it. I will attend the auction. I will bid. If we win, the title transfers to the LLC. And the eviction? Once the LLC owns it, we serve a 3-day notice to quit. If they don't leave, we file an unlawful detainer. The sheriff removes them. Do it, I said. It will cost you, Davis warned. You have to pay off the loan balance to buy it, or outbid others. I have my savings, I said, and I cashed out my 401k from my old job. It's worth it. It wasn't about the real estate. It was about the principle. It was about taking back the power. While the legal gears turned, the social war began. Jessica went on Facebook. She wrote a long, rambling post. Please pray for my parents. My father is recovering from a heart condition, and my sister, who is a millionaire, has decided to abandon them and let them lose their home. It's disgusting how money changes people. We are organizing a GoFundMe to save the family home. The comments were brutal. Family friends, distant cousins, people I hadn't seen in years, all piling on. How could she? Ungrateful brat. Karma will get her. I read them all. I felt a sting, sure. No one likes to be hated. But I also knew something they didn't. I knew the truth. I didn't argue in the comments. I didn't defend myself. I simply posted one photo on my own timeline. I set the privacy to public. It was a spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, amount sent to Frank Peterson. Column C, purpose, mortgage/bills. Column D, total cumulative amount, $456,000. Next to it, I posted the public record of the cash-out refinance and the HELOC withdrawal with the date highlighted, and the bank statement showing the transfer to Jessica Peterson, gift. My caption was simple. I paid $456,000 for a house I don't own. They secretly drained $150,000 of equity to fund Jessica's lifestyle while I paid the bill. I stopped being the ATM. If that makes me the villain, so be it. The silence that followed was deafening. The GoFundMe was taken down within an hour. Jessica deleted her post. The nasty comments on her page disappeared. The flying monkeys, the enablers, retreated back into the shadows. Truth is a powerful disinfectant. 3 months passed. They were the longest 3 months of my life. I focused on work. I focused on Leo. I went to therapy. "You're grieving," my therapist told me. "You're grieving the parents you wished you had, not the ones you actually have." She was right. I was mourning a fantasy. The day of the auction arrived. It was held on the courthouse steps. It was raining. A fitting, pathetic fallacy. I didn't go. I couldn't. I sat in my office, staring at my phone, waiting for Davis to call. The house was underwater, but in our market, land was valuable. There would be investors, flippers. My phone rang at 11 a.m. "Davis," I answered. "It's done," he said. His voice was calm. "Did we get it?" "We got it. Justice Properties LLC is the new owner of 124 Maple Drive." I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding since Thanksgiving. "What's the next step?" I asked. "I'm filing the deed recording today. Tomorrow, I send the email to the occupants introducing the new management company. I'll offer them a cash-for-keys deal or a short-term lease to lull them into a false sense of security. Then we drop the hammer." "No," I said. "Don't offer them cash. They'll just spend it. Offer them a meeting. Tell them the new owner wants to inspect the property and discuss occupancy terms." "You want to face them?" Davis asked. "I need to," I said. "I need them to know it wasn't just bad luck. I need them to know it was me." "Okay," Davis said. "Friday at noon." I heard through the grapevine, aka Aunt Linda, who had switched sides after seeing my spreadsheet, that Frank and Barbara were actually relieved the house had been sold. They thought the debt was wiped out. They thought they could manipulate the new landlord. "Frank says he's going to offer to be the caretaker," Aunt Linda told me on the phone. "He thinks he can charm the new owner into letting them stay for cheap rent because he knows the house best." The arrogance was breathtaking. They had lost the house because they refused to pay for it, yet they believed they were entitled to stay in it. Jessica had moved back in with them, just as Tom predicted. She had been evicted from her apartment, so now the whole toxic trio was under one roof. Davis sent the email to Frank. "Dear Mr. Peterson, Justice Properties LLC has acquired the property. We would like to schedule a site visit this Friday at 12 p.m. to assess the condition of the home and discuss the future of your occupancy." Frank replied immediately. "We look forward to meeting you. We are excellent tenants. We have lived here 40 years. I am sure we can come to an arrangement." Excellent tenants. I laughed out loud when Davis forwarded me the email. Friday came. I dressed carefully. I wore my best tailored suit, a sharp navy blue power suit. I wore heels that clicked authoritatively on the pavement. I pulled my hair back into a tight bun. I wasn't Andrea the daughter. I was Andrea the owner. I met Davis and Sheriff Miller, no relation to Mark, a block away. "You ready?" Davis asked. "Never been more ready," I said. We drove to the house. There it was, 124 Maple Drive. The grass was overgrown. The gutters, the ones Dad yelled at me about, were sagging. It looked tired. There was a rented BMW in the driveway. Jessica, of course. We walked up the path. I stood behind Davis so they wouldn't see me through the peephole immediately. Davis knocked. The door swung open. Frank was standing there, wearing a dress shirt and a tie. He was smiling that oily salesman smile. Barbara was behind him, wearing pearls. Jessica was lounging on the couch in the background. "Welcome, welcome," Frank boomed. "You must be the representative from Justice Properties. Come in, come in." Davis stepped in. "Mr. Peterson, I am Attorney Davis." "Pleasure," Frank said, shaking his hand. "And this is?" He looked at the sheriff. His smile faltered slightly. "Is there a problem, officer?" "Just a civil standby, sir," the sheriff said. "Standard procedure for evictions." "Evictions?" Frank laughed nervously. "Oh, no, no. We're here to negotiate a lease. We want to rent the place back. We're good people. My daughter, well, my eldest daughter, she screwed us over financially, stopped paying the bills she promised to pay, but we are victims here." I stepped out from behind the sheriff. "Hello, Frank," I said. The silence in the room was absolute. It was heavier than the silence at Thanksgiving. Frank's jaw literally dropped. Barbara gasped and covered her mouth. Jessica jumped up from the couch. "Andrea?" Frank stammered. What are you doing here? Did you come to apologize? Did you come to pay the man?" He turned to Davis. "This is her. This is the ungrateful daughter I told you about. Kick her out." Davis didn't move. He looked at Frank, then he looked at me. "Mr. Peterson," Davis said calm, "I think there is a misunderstanding. This is Miss Andrea Miller. She is the sole owner of Justice Properties, LLC. Frank looked at me, then at Davis, then back at me. His brain was trying to process the information, but it was jamming. He whispered, "You bought the house?" "I bought the note," I corrected him, stepping into the foyer. My heels clicked on the wood. "And then I bought the deed at auction. I own this house, Dad. I own the roof, the floor, the walls, and the gutters." You can't," Barbara squeaked. "You're our daughter." "I'm your landlord," I said. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a manila envelope. "And you are trespassing." "This is a joke," Jessica sneered, walking forward. "You're bluffing. You don't have that kind of money." "I have exactly the kind of money you stole from the equity," I said calmly. "Only I earned mine." I handed the envelope to Frank. "This is a notice to vacate," I said. "In the state, since I bought this at foreclosure and you are the previous owners, I don't have to give you 30 days. I have to give you 3. But since I'm generous and since it's almost the weekend, I'm giving you 24 hours. 24 hours? Frank shouted. His face turned purple. "You can't do this." "I have lived here for 40 years. It's my house." "It was the bank's house," I said. "Now it's my house, and I have plans for it. I'm going to sell it. The proceeds will go into a college fund for Leo. Finally, this house will actually benefit my son." "You are evil," Barbara hissed. "How can you do this to your family, to your sister?" "My family is at home," I said. "My family is Mark and Leo. You're just people I used to know." Frank lunged at me. "You ungrateful little." The sheriff stepped forward, his hand resting on his belt. "Sir, step back. Do not threaten the homeowner." Frank froze. He looked at the sheriff, then at me. He realized, for the first time in his life, he had no power here. No physical power, no financial power, no emotional power. "I will sue you," Frank spat. "Go ahead," I said. "Lawyer Davis would love that. We can discuss the fraud you committed with the refinance. We can discuss the identity theft with the HELOC. I have the files ready for the district attorney. Do you really want to open that door, Frank?" Frank paled. He knew. He knew I knew. 24 hours, I said. Noon tomorrow. Anything left inside becomes my property. And if you damage anything, if you punch a hole in a wall or scratch a floor, I will pursue criminal charges for vandalism. I turned to Jessica. "And Jessica, Tom called. He's filing an emergency custody order today. Since you are homeless, I think the judge will grant it." Jessica screamed. It was a primal, childish scream. I hate you. I hope you die. Goodbye, I said. I turned and walked out the door. I didn't look back. You are amazing for sticking with me this far. If you are cheering for Andrea right now, please hit that like button and comment the number 1 below. Let me know you're on the side of justice. Your support helps me tell these stories. Comment 1 and let's see how this ends. The next 24 hours were a flurry of activity, according to the neighbors. Mrs. Henderson, across the street, my old piano teacher, texted me updates. They are throwing boxes into a U-Haul. Your father is yelling at the bushes. Jessica is crying on the lawn. I felt peace. At noon the next day, I returned with the sheriff and a locksmith. The U-Haul was gone. The driveway was empty. We walked in. The house was a mess, but not destroyed. They were too scared of the jail time to smash things, but they had left trash. They had left the things they didn't want. The mahogany table, the one where I was denied pie, was still there. It was too heavy for them to move. I ran my hand along the wood. Change the locks, I told the locksmith. You got it, lady. I walked through the empty rooms. The ghost of my childhood was gone. The fear was gone. It was just wood and drywall. I sold the house 2 months later to a nice young couple. They were expecting their first baby. I told them, fill this house with love. It needs it. I made a profit. After paying off the legal fees and the purchase price, I walked away with about $60,000. I put every cent of it into a 529 college savings plan for Leo. Frank and Barbara moved into a clumsy 2-bedroom apartment on the bad side of town. Their credit was ruined by the foreclosure, so they had to pay 6 months' rent in advance, money they likely borrowed from a predatory lender. Jessica lost custody of her kids. Tom got primary custody. Jessica gets supervised visits every other weekend. She had to get a job as a receptionist, the very job my father told me I wasn't pretty enough for. I haven't spoken to them since the day I handed them the eviction notice. If you had told me a year ago that silence could be a sound, I wouldn't have believed you. In my old life, silence was just a precursor to a storm. It was the breath my father took before yelling, or the pause on the phone line before my mother delivered a guilt trip. But now silence is a melody. It was a Sunday morning in late May, the kind of morning that feels like a permission slip from the universe to just be. I was sitting on the back deck of our modest home, the one Mark and I bought together, the one that doesn't have a grand mahogany dining table, but has walls that have never heard a scream. I held a mug of steaming coffee in my hands, feeling the ceramic warmth seep into my palms. The sun was filtering through the oak trees, dappling the wooden deck with dancing patterns of light and shadow. Down in the yard, Leo was playing. He wasn't playing quietly. He was building a fort out of cardboard boxes and sticks, shouting instructions to an imaginary army. "Secure the perimeter!" he yelled, his voice cracking with 9-year-old enthusiasm. I watched him, and my chest didn't tighten. I didn't glance at the neighbors' windows, worried they would judge us for having a loud child. I didn't wait for a text from my father critiquing his lack of discipline. I just watched my son be a child. Mark slid the glass door open and stepped out, handing me a plate with a croissant. "He's loud today," Mark smiled, sitting next to me. "He's happy," I corrected, leaning my head on Mark's shoulder. "He is," Mark agreed. He took a sip of his coffee and looked at me. "And so are you. You haven't clenched your jaw in 3 months. I've been counting." I touched my face. He was right. The chronic tension headaches, the grinding of teeth in my sleep, it was all gone. It turned out I didn't need a chiropractor. I just needed an eviction notice. We had used the profit from the sale of my parents' house, my house, wisely. The $60,000 wasn't just money, it was restitution. I put the maximum amount into a 529 college savings plan for Leo. Every time I looked at that account balance, I didn't see numbers. I saw Leo's future freedom. I saw him going to college without having to beg a grandfather for tuition. I saw him graduating without the strings I had been tied up in. But the real wealth wasn't in the bank. It was in the moments like this. Thanksgiving rolled around again, the anniversary of the pie incident. The body keeps the score, they say. As the date approached, I felt a phantom flicker of anxiety. Old habits die hard. My brain was wired to expect the drama, the criticism, the hunger. But this year, we were going to Mark's parents' house, the Millers. I had always liked Susan and Dave Miller, but I had kept them at arm's length. I think, deep down, I was ashamed of my own family. I didn't want the Millers to see the toxicity I came from, so I hid it. And in doing so, I hid myself. Not anymore. We drove over around 2 p.m. Their house is a small, rambling ranch style with peeling blue paint and a garden that is wildly overgrown with hydrangeas. It's not impressive. It's not Instagrammable like Jessica's staged photos. It's lived in. When we walked in, the sensory difference hit me instantly. My parents' house always smelled of lemon polish and expensive candles, a chemical attempt to cover up the rot. The Miller's house smelled of roasting turkey, sage, yeast rolls, and wood smoke from the fireplace. It smelled like food, not performance. "Andrea, Mark, Leo," Susan came bustling out of the kitchen. She was wearing an apron covered in flour, her gray hair escaping from a messy bun. She didn't look me up and down to critique my outfit. She hugged me. A real hug, the kind that squeezes the air out of you. "Here, give me those coats," Dave said, wrestling a giant serving platter onto the sideboard. "Leo, buddy, the game is on. Your cousins are downstairs destroying the basement. Go join them." Leo didn't hesitate. He didn't look at me for permission to breathe. He just yelled, "Okay, Grandpa," and thundered down the stairs. "Grandpa." He called Dave Grandpa so easily now. It stung a little. A mourning for what Frank could have been if he hadn't been so consumed by his own ego. But mostly, it felt like healing. I went into the kitchen to help Susan. "What can I do?" I asked. "Oh, honey, just grab that salad spinner," Susan said, laughing. "I overbought on the kale. Who buys kale for Thanksgiving? I think I was possessed." We laughed. We stood side by side at the sink, washing greens. "Susan?" I asked quietly, the water running over my hands. "Yeah, hun? Thank you. For everything. For making this easy." Susan stopped chopping the carrots. She wiped her hands on her apron and looked at me. Her eyes were kind, crinkled at the corners with years of genuine smiles. "Andrea," she said softly, "family isn't a tribunal. You don't have to stand trial here. You just have to eat." I had to look away to blink back tears. You don't have to stand trial here. I hadn't realized until that moment that I had spent 38 years feeling like I was the defendant in my own life, constantly presenting evidence of my worthiness to a jury that had already decided I was guilty. Dinner was chaotic. There were 12 of us squeezed around a table meant for 8. We were bumping elbows. People were talking over each other. There was no hierarchy. Mark wasn't served before me. The kids weren't silenced. Then came dessert. My pulse spiked. I couldn't help it. The memory of Frank's smirk, the "no pie for your son," was visceral. Susan brought out the pies, a pumpkin, an apple, and a chocolate pecan. She set them down in the center of the table. "Okay," Susan announced, picking up the knife. "Who's first? The rule is the youngest gets served first because they have the least patience." She looked at Leo. "Leo, you're up, kiddo." The table went quiet for a split second, or maybe it was just my ears ringing. I watched my son. He looked at the pie. Then he looked at me. There was a hesitation in his eyes, a shadow of the trauma from last year. He was checking the temperature of the room. He was wondering if he had been good enough today. "Go ahead, buddy," Mark whispered, nudging him. "Can I have the pumpkin?" Leo asked, his voice small. "You can have the pumpkin," Susan beamed. "And do you want whipped cream?" "Yes, please." "Tell me when." Susan sprayed the can. Whoosh! A white mountain rose on the orange slice. It grew taller and taller. "When?" Leo giggled. "Oops, my finger slipped," Dave joked from the end of the table, winking. Susan handed the plate to Leo. "Thank you, Grandma," Leo said. He took a forkful. He ate it, and then he smiled. It was a smile of pure, unadulterated sugar and safety. "Mom!" Leo yelled across the table, his mouth slightly full, breaking every rule of etiquette my father held dear. "This is way better than the store-bought kind." "I heard that," Susan laughed. I let out a breath. The cycle was broken. The curse didn't travel in the blood, it traveled in the behavior. And we had changed the behavior. Later that evening, while everyone was in a food coma watching football, I stepped out onto the front porch for some air. The autumn air was crisp, smelling of fallen leaves. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a notification from my blocked messages folder. My phone automatically filters them, but sometimes, like a scab you can't help but pick, I check. It was from a number I didn't recognize, but I knew the syntax. I knew the voice. Text message. "It's Thanksgiving, Andrea. Your mother is crying. We are in this terrible apartment. The heating is loud. We forgive you for what you did. Just come by. Bring the boy. We miss our family. Dad." I stared at the screen. The manipulation was a masterclass. First, the guilt. Mother is crying. Second, the pity. Terrible apartment. Third, the false benevolence. We forgive you, as if I was the one who sinned. Finally, the demand disguised as a request. Come by. A year ago, that text would have ruined my week. I would have agonized over it. I would have felt the pull of obligation, the crushing weight of honor thy father and mother. But standing there on the miller's porch, hearing my son laugh through the window behind me, I felt nothing. Well, not nothing. I felt the clarity of a balance sheet that finally balances. I realized that forgiveness from them was a trap. They didn't miss me. They missed the asset. They missed the buffer. They missed the audience for their drama. I thought about the word value. In finance, we talk about return on investment, ROI. What was the ROI of my relationship with them? Investment, $450,000, decades of emotional labor, my self-esteem, my son's happiness. Return, criticism, theft, conditional love, and zero pie. It was a bad investment, a bankrupt enterprise. I didn't reply. I didn't feel the urge to explain myself or to send a snarky comeback. The receipts had been served. The case was closed. I pressed delete. Then I went into the settings and cleared the blocked messages history. I didn't need to see the ghosts anymore. I turned around and looked through the window. Mark was sitting on the floor, wrestling with Leo and the dog. Susan was pouring coffee for Dave. They looked messy and loud and real. This was my family of choice. Biology is just a lottery. It's a genetic coincidence. But family? Family is something you build. It's a series of active choices you make every day. It is choosing to listen. It is choosing to respect boundaries. It is choosing to say, yes, have a slice of pie, without checking a scorecard of behavior. I walked back inside, sliding the glass door shut behind me, locking the cold night out. Mark looked up. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said, walking over and sitting down on the floor next to them. I pulled Leo into my lap, burying my face in his hair, which smelled of autumn air and vanilla. Everything is perfect. I looked at the camera, or rather, I looked at you, the person listening to this story right now. I know why you're here. I know you've probably felt that knot in your stomach at a family dinner. I know you've probably overgiven to people who underappreciate you. I know you've wondered if you're the crazy one for wanting to walk away. You aren't. It took me 38 years to learn that my worth isn't determined by how much I can endure. It's determined by what I refuse to tolerate. I lost a house that was never really a home, but I gained a life that is actually mine. So if you are waiting for a sign to draw that line in the sand, to stop the transaction, to protect your peace, this is it. This is your sign. Buy the pie, eat it with the people who love you, and leave the rest behind. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening to my story. It's been a long journey, and sharing it with you has been part of my healing. If you made it to the very end, please comment the letter A below for Andrea, for autonomy, for a new beginning. I want to see how many of you are standing with me.